Good evening everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. And if you're new here, welcome for the very first time. And tonight we're going to count down and rank my top 10 80s horror novels. So yeah, stay tuned. Okay, before we start off everyone, I'll just right off the bat here, I want to ask you all, as my viewers, what do you think is a golden era of horror in terms of decades? Because I want you to let me know in the spaces down below and your reasons, because I did a video, okay, not that recently, maybe a month ago, of my top 10 70s horror novels of all time. Horror novels. And yeah, it's just that it kind of started the whole thing, right? With books like Rosemary's Baby, and you got The Exorcist and Psycho. I think that was in the 60s. But then yeah, you got the public imagination. And yeah, it kick-started horror off in that time. And then you got the 80s, which I'm going to talk about now, which I would say is a golden era. Because you got so many different authors. You've got a time in the world with a bit of excess in terms of fashion, in terms of pop culture, a lot of horror movies. That sort of anything goes, right? And also there's fears, for example, like nuclear fears, the Cold War. There's fears that horror taps into, and I think it was kind of ripe for horror that time. But then, there's people, and I've been going online and I've been looking around a little bit, and I found that in the 2000s, and even right now, we'll be living in right now, we're possibly going through the golden era now, because you've got a huge diversity of voices in horror that we didn't have before. Yeah, and you know, sexuality, kind of race, and horror that reflects the anxieties and the fears of our time. But yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a future video because I'm going through the decades and I'd love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, before we do that, let's get on to the video. Okay, let's start with some rules. Alright, first of all, just one author. Otherwise I might have Stephen King 3 or 4 of these books, because this was his prime time in the 80s. And secondly, yeah, no short story collections, but I will mention one as a special mention because it's such an important collection. And thirdly, I'm going to try and avoid horror adjacent fiction. For example, something like Silence of the Lambs would have been on here, but I just think it more crime horror, crime fiction and horror stroke horror. And yeah, another one like Ghoul by Michael Slade, that also could have been on here. But it's a bit horror adjacent, so I'm going to try and avoid that. So let's get going. Okay, we're going to start off with Clive Barker's Books of Blood. Now I'm going to go volume 4 here. I've read volume 1 to 6. I think it's 30 stories, short stories. And yeah, I'm only holding this up because of the friggin' awesome cover, people. Yeah, ripped to pieces. And it's just such an important work, and it's such an important. And if you're a horror lover, horror reader, you really have to read the Books of Blood. It was ahead of its time, incredibly visceral, gory, hypersexual at times, a lot of the time, and just, yeah, ahead of its time. What Stephen King says, I see the face of horror, it's a future of horror, it's Clive Barker. And yeah, just, there are so few duds out of all 30 books. I've done a ranking video. I'm going to put it at the end of this video so you can check. I did Clive Barker's Books of Blood 1 to 3 and 4 to 6. You can check that out. But yeah, this is well worth a read. Just a fantastic horror author with beautiful prose. Even when he's talking about the darkest things, the bloodiest things, with demons and yeah, the prose is so gorgeous, people. Yeah, Books of Blood. Okay people, this was a really tough decision for number 10. Yeah, you're going to be surprised. I'm going for Midnight's Lair by Richard Lehman. I can't stop thinking about this book. And yeah, Lehman is very much hit or miss for me. Actually, more misses than hits. But this is a great book, people. And even though I gave it 4.5 stars, I think it belongs on this list. Minus all the horror adjacent stuff I talked about before. But yeah, it's just like a tourist attraction. It's this cave. This thing of wonder caves. It's a hotel. And yeah. And people travel on this boat. I think it's a boat going underwater to see these caves. And yeah, so it's a big tourist thing, and it's a hotel with a swimming pool. And yeah, one tour, when they go in to the caves, there is a power outage. Power goes out, people, and they are trapped there underground. And that might be one reason I really enjoy this book. I'm going to go into Lehman in a minute. But one reason I enjoy this book is because it's claustrophobic, people. I'm claustrophobic. I get terrified in caves and tight spaces. Right? It's scary for me. And yet this is a Lehman book, so there is an adolescent sort of thing with sexual stuff. There's kind of a lot of rumps and boobs and all sorts of stuff going on. And there's like people running around half naked, in danger, fear of their lives with these monsters. And yet they still want to get it off. They get rapey, and it is ridiculous. But at the same time, out of all the Lehman books that I've read, this was the most fun. I had the most fun with this book because I was fun and I was scared. So yeah, this is one of those rare treats from Lehman that I really did enjoy. And as I said, they get trapped under the caves and there are creatures there. I'll tell you what they are. And some of the people are despicable. It's this owner and his son. People are despicable in a lot of Lehman books, but it's just fun. So that's why I'm having it number 4. Oh, and what I'm going to do for this video is for each book, I'm going to find a quote or something, just to, this will be the shortest. Her back was bare to the top of her rump. Yeah. And that's basically at the hotel because all this stuff goes down. Just this guy oogling, perving over this woman in a bikini. Yeah, her rump. It's just by her bikini. Yeah. Lehman is such a perv. Hopeless. Number 9, we got The Mirror by Graham Masterton. I was hoping I could get a better cover than this. But believe me, the book's called The Mirror. Okay? And it's about a failed screenwriter in Hollywood who is obsessed. Obsession is a big thing about this book. With a young child star from the 1930s who was brutally murdered by his grandmother. And so he collects stuff, right, that has to do with this child. I can't remember what the name of the child star is now, damn it, Doofus or something cute like that, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, he purchases this mirror, thinks it's the best thing ever. But the mirror was in the room when the child got ripped to pieces by the grandmother. And when he gets this mirror in his flat, in his apartment, his life becomes a nightmare. Yeah. Because there's danger on the other side of the mirror, lies a nightmare. Yeah. I can't really say more than that. This book is creepy. And it's pop references, obviously, to the 1930s movie era. And also, it's set in the 80s, so there's references to all sorts of fun kind of pop culture. And it's just a lot, it's scary, and it's creepy, and at times freaking terrifying. It's alternate reality on the other side of this mirror. And the stuff that happens. And typical Graham Masterton, it is freaking gory, people. It's bloody, it's gory, it's fun. And yeah, I think this might be my favourite Graham Masterton book. Okay, now what did I choose for? Because I have to choose a quote here, so let's see what I chose. When Mr. McKelly had gone, Martin carefully took down all his Bufels, that's the name of the guy, Bufels, photographs and cuttings. Then he dragged the mirror noisily up against the wall beside his desk. There were 4 brass plates at the side of the mirror, 2 on each side. Okay. Blah 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 blah. Oh, it's a little bit later when he has a drink. Okay, he poured himself another glass of wine. Maybe his luck was going to change after all. Maybe some of Buffel's success would radiate out of his mirror and bless Martin's work. Martin raised his glass to himself and said, "Prost." It was then, in the mirror, that's what I was looking for, that he saw a child's blue and white ball come bouncing through the open door behind him and then roll to a stop in the middle of the varnished wood floor. Where did the ball come from? Where did it come from? Okay, for number 8 we got Elementals by Michael McDowell. People, underrated author you have to check out if you are a reader. And yeah, it's a Southern Gothic reader. And what's this book about? It's very slow burn, very Gothic, and it's about these 2 families. And at the beginning of the book there's this absolutely bizarre funeral. Crazy. And then what they do, they kind of travel down to this place on the Gulf Coast. It's southern Alabama, I don't know, America. But yeah, beautiful Gulf Coast. They're very rich, these families. Where there are 3 Victorian homes, kind of very isolated, it's cut off, but on the beach, sand. And yeah, the one family lives in one room, or in the one house, one family lives in another house, and the 3rd house is being encroached by sea sand. And there may be, very well be, something terrifying, horrifying living down there. Living in the house, or an entity or something in the house. I'm not going to say more. May or may not be. But yeah, it's a very slow burn. It's a lot of characters, character driven as well at times. But it's very fun and interesting, very strange characters. And it builds up people. And towards the end it gets pretty freaking terrifying. The reveal and just the horror. So yeah, Michael McDowell's well worth checking out. I'm just finishing off Blackwater right now, which I've absolutely loved. But yeah, and the quote I've got for you is, "In the night the house settled, creak sounding in the hallways like an errant footsteps. Windows popped in their frames, china rattled in the cupboards, and pictures suddenly stripped awry on the walls." So kind of awry, something like that, yeah. So yeah, that's Elementals. Okay, number 6, people, is Necroscope by Brian Lumley. That's the first part of a long series. I haven't got to the rest of the series yet, but the first book is brilliant. And yeah, it's about, it was set during the Cold War. You've got this kind of the spy feel about it, venture action spy feel, but it's horror. And you got, on the one side, on the Russian side, working for the Russians is a necromancer. So yeah, he's a necromancer, and so what his ability is to rape the secrets from the dead, rip them out. So I'm going to read just now. Well, not the whole thing. And then on the other side, on the British side, I kind of learn that from him later on, but they're obviously going to be a protagonist and antagonist sort of thing. And he's a necroscope, and he doesn't have to rip the secrets. The dead tell him the secrets. Right? And yeah, in between that's a centuries old vampire which is trapped and he can't get out. Yeah, and he's obviously going to come into play later on in the series. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and kind of there's the Necroscope and the Necromancer, you know, kind of a Great Britain, Russia, Cold War, thunder going off there. But yeah, it's going to come together, and that's very exciting. And I'm going to read something just at the beginning of the book. The naked man had straightened up, stood erect again over the deflated corpse. He had one hand on the dead man's thigh, the other on his chest, palms flat down. His eyes were open again, round as saucers, but his colour had visibly changed. The normal healthy pink of a young, recently scrubbed body had entirely disappeared. His grey was uniform with that of the dead flesh he touched. He was literally grey as death. He held his breath, seeming to savour the very taste of death, and his cheeks appeared to be slowly caving in. There! You're going to have to read it yourself. Yeah. So that is Necroscope. Okay, Rowan, for number 6 I've got Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons. Now, yeah, this could have been higher up. This huge novel could have been higher up on my list, but I just haven't read it for so long. And other ones, maybe I have or just remember more clearly. But still, this is an action-adventure, horror, kind of vampire novel set over a number of decades, a number of places, so it's epic in scope. And yeah, it starts off in Nazi Germany, and you've got this character, this Jew, and he comes face to face with this monster. And yet some of the most horrifying stuff I've ever read right at the beginning of the book, what takes place in these concentration camps, and this game of chess, people, game of chess. Anyway, the antagonists in the story, you know, we're going to follow them through the decades, because apparently they're behind a lot of the atrocities and stuff that have happened in the world, all the evil, you know, and the kind of violence and deaths that have happened. And yeah, they're kind of vampires, but they're mind vampires, they're psychic vampires. And what they can do is control you at a distance and take over you completely. You know, kind of take over your emotions and just expel you, take over you physically. They can make you do anything you want, they want. And so you kill, and then like at the end of what they want, they just discard you like a husk, like an empty husk. And yeah, they're truly evil, truly wicked, and yeah, and that's why I'm going to come to what I said here with my quote. All humans feed on violence, on the smell, exercises of power over another, but few have tasted, as we have, the ultimate power. So they're talking about themselves there, and really there's some of these villains, some of these evil vampire, psychic vampires, especially this old grandmotherly creature, they're just truly despicable, like, yeah, and all they want is death and bloodshed and hatred and of course chaos on earth. Yeah. So it's Carrion Comfort. I mean, a lot of people say it's too long. When I read it at the time, it didn't feel that long. Maybe it was a little long, but it's still read very easy. That Dan Simmons, and it's Carrion Comfort. Okay, number 5 might come as a bit of a surprise, people, but this relatively unknown book is absolutely freaking amazing. And to be honest, it might be placed too low. That is Toady by Mark Morris. Yeah, and this is a small seaside town, kind of closed. It's a vacation town. And you got these 3 boys who bond together to form this horror club because they love horror magazines, you know, scary videos. This very 80s. This book is so 80s. And yeah, they bond together. And then there's a new boy at school who ends up joining him. But this boy is odd, and his name is Toady, right? And yeah, he persuades the rest of the boys to have a seance. It's like, oh, lightning. They're going to have a seance. And the seance ends up yeah, attracting this evil force in this town. And the boys have to try and stop it. It's brilliant, people. It starts off a very small town. And at the end, it gets fantastical and almost cosmic and just incredible. A really good horror novel. And I'd love to get hold of more Mark Morris, but yeah, it's very difficult to get hold of. I love Toady. Okay. And I want to read one thing here, which is going to take us off. It's a bit easier. Starmouth, that's the name of the small town, Starmouth, was in deepest hibernation, so still and silent you might almost have thought it was dead. On the seafront, empty tram lines waited patiently for migrant trams, the shops and stalls now shuttered, were winter havens for beach balls, postcards and kiss me quick hats. A lonely hotel stared out to sea, pink or yellow or white, like giant ice cream blocks masquerading as buildings. I love the way this guy writes, people. He's absolute just wordsmith. And this is a brilliant book if you can get your hands on it. So yes, Toady. Okay people, it seems like there's a thunderstorm on the way, so I'm in a bit of a rush to get through the last 4. It's a long video anyway. Let's go for Clive Barker, The Hellbound Heart, people. It's the only novella on this list. That's short, but it packs a punch. Serious horror punch. And yeah, let's just talk about it. Frank, and yeah, he's got his lover with him, but Frank is a hedonist, and he is tired. He's tired of all the pleasures of this world. You know, he's bored. And he finds this box, this magic box, I think it's Chinese, and it's a puzzle box. And he opens the box, people, and I've told you about this book, All Hell Breaks Loose. These Cenobites come. Oh man, they give him a choice, but he chooses pleasure. But the pleasure he wants is not necessarily the pleasure that they feel. Right, yeah. I just want to read the one part, and I haven't marked it off again, so I'm just going to find it quickly. The doorway was even now opening to pleasures no more than a handful of humans had ever known existed, much less tasted. Pleasures which would redefine the parameters of sensation, which would release him from the dull round of desire, seduction and disappointment, which had dogged him from late adolescence. He would be transformed by that knowledge, wouldn't he? No man could experience the profundity of such feeling and remain unchanged. But yeah, what's going to happen to him is going to be, and it's not really a spoiler because you know, it's absolute pain with the pleasure, and kind of going to be ripped apart. And as it says on Goodreads, what's left of him, his lover, can maybe help him. It's just going to take a little bit of flesh and blood. Number 3, Off Season by Jack Ketchum. Yeah. And 6 New Yorkers, out-of-towners, go into this little Maine seaside town, and they stay in a little lonely cabin in the woods. That's always a bad sign, right? Very close by are a family of inbred cannibals who are dying. Yeah. And people, I love this book because it is just so freaking incredibly well written. It's so intense, and the violence and the gore and everything is almost personal. And it's like, you know, the way that it's happening is it's so visceral. And I read this in one sitting. I read it in an ebook. I only recently got this. And this might be different because this is uncut. But the violence is so unsettling and disturbing because it's so intimate, and the way he writes about it. Never read anything like that before. So you think it's just about cannibals eating people, but it's a lot more than that, people. And yeah, it's interesting because in the first 100 and whatever pages, nothing happens. There's character development, right? And then, yeah, all hell breaks loose. I want to read a quote that I actually got online that's actually freaking disturbing. And yeah, it kind of gives you a hint of that intimacy of the violence between the person eating you and the... Yeah. He was keeping her alive as long as he could, and she participated in her torture by her body's blind attempts to survive it. Didn't she know that it was better to be dead now? What awful fraud animated her will to live was as cruel as he was. Oh, sorry. What awful fraud animated her? Her will to live was as cruel as he was. There's this kind of intimacy in this book between what is happening to people and the violence, and it's brutal. It's not for the faint of heart. But he writes in such a way that, kind of, where other authors will kind of step back, he comes close in, has a look, sees what's up. Right? Yeah. Off Season. Read it if you dare. Okay, we've reached number 2. Hopefully I'm running ahead of the storm, people. We've got It by Stephen King. Right? My favourite book is 1979, The Stand, but this is the 1980s, so I'm going with my second favourite, It. This is a glorious coming-of-age novel in a small town, Maine, Derry, Maine, and it's being haunted by this evil entity. And there are 7 kids, the Losers Club, probably my favourite teens in fiction ever. Awesome characters, and yeah, we follow them as teens and as adults as they have to face up against this evil entity and defeat it. And there's just so much going on in this book, people. So many other characters, bullies, villains, and just so many just terrifying scenes, horrifying scenes, but also scenes of friendship between these characters. And I absolutely love it. And also, kind of reflects like what happens to them as teens, and when you look at them as adults, how those experiences affect them as adults. It's just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant book. And my number 2 in one book deserve that I actually read just a little bit. Now I have to be careful here, because I just read the whole fucking chapter. Excuse me. But, "Hi Georgie," it said. George blinked and looked again. He could barely credit what he saw. It was something from a made-up story, or a movie, where you knew the animals would talk and dance. If he had been 10 years older, he would not have believed what he was seeing. But he was not 16, he was 6. There was a clown in the storm drain. The light in there was far from good, but it was good enough so that George Denborough was sure of the fact of what he was seeing. It was a clown, like in a circus on TV. Let's skip a little bit forward. "Want your boat, Georgie?" Pennywise asked. "I only repeat myself because you really do not seem that eager." Okay, I could read this whole chapter to you, people. And there are so many quotable, there's so much in this chapter that I would love to read to you. But read it yourself, it's number 2. It's It. Okay, we come to number 1. Have you guessed what it is, people? Watching my channel, you should know. 1980s. Robert McCammon, Swan Song, people. I spoke about the novel. It's not just my favourite 1980s horror novel. It's my favourite horror novel, and it's my favourite novel of all time. I absolutely love this novel. It's got incredible characters that I'll never forget. Good versus evil, and yeah, just post-apocalyptic, which kind of I live for. Kind of fiction done so well, people. And it's not The Stand. It's a nuclear war, people. The bombs fell. America is a nuclear winterland, and the survivors have to eke out a living, right? And I'm seeing lightning right there, so it's a little bit worrying to be honest. And all I'm going to do, instead of saying anything more about the book, I'm going to read you the first page, because the President of the United States of America has a problem. He's got a big problem. "Once upon a time, we had a love affair with fire. The President of the United States thought as the match that he just struck to light his pipe flared beneath his fingers. He stared into it, mesmerized by its color. And as the fire grew, he had the vision of a tower of flame, 1,000 feet tall, whirling across the country he loved, torching cities and towns, turning rivers to steam, ripping across the ruins of heartland farms, and casting the ashes of 70 million human beings into a black sky. He watched with dreadful fascination as the flame crawled up the match, and he realized that there, on a tiny scale, was the power of both creation and destruction. It could cook food, illuminate the darkness, melt iron, and sear human flesh. Something that resembled a small, unblinking scarlet eye opened in the center of the flame, and he wanted to scream. He had awakened at 2 in the morning from a nightmare of Holocaust. Okay, just one more. Where am I? It's Stephen King. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'd always figured it's better to die on your feet than living on your knees. Another one. I used to be an optimist. A long time ago, I used to believe in miracles. But you know what happened? I got older and the world got meaner. Yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. Okay, people, yeah, I beat the storm. Well, maybe it kind of went that way, but I could see lightning. Ooh, you might hear it. Wait for it. No. Very quiet storm. Anyway, what did you think of my video? What are some of your favorite books from the 80s? What are some of your books from the 80s? And yeah, let me know, people, what do you think of maybe my top 3 choices? Give me your top 3 choices. I'd love to have a conversation with you in the spaces below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. This has been a long video already, so I apologize. But yeah, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves and others. Until next time, keep those pages turning, and cheers.